Ahoy there, Legion. Well, I gave them 2 weeks. 2 full weeks to get their stuff sorted out. What are my thoughts on Melee 2.0? While I think it was for the most part handled a lot better than Damage 2.0's release, DE has a very bad grasp on implementation. I'm in quite a weird spot right now because I'm not really mad at the game, I'm just more disappointed with it, which is kind of worse, but either way, I won't be blasting it with rage like I did with The Last of Us or Mass Effect 3's ending, but at the same time I feel like I need to at least point out the issues I have ran into myself. You can't fix what you don't know about, right? My hope, even with those games I just mentioned, is to prevent other games from making the same mistakes, to have Warframe itself improve, and overall raise awareness of things developers and publishers alike do, so that they cannot repeat history and hold us gamers back as a whole. Also, item shops and games tend to lead to other issues, but that's another episode entirely, so let's rewind and go back to the night of the patch. Here we go, the patch is out. I know these things take time, and I am not judging. It was past the air quotes time limit, but I'd still have the next day to play around with it and form an opinion. Not a flawless release, but hey, at least we can play it now. Apollodorus had huge problems I couldn't even record as people were constantly joining and leaving, causing those lovely host migration issues. Perhaps they were trying to use the old client and trying to connect anyway, who knows, so I just jumped to Venus instead. And what do you know, a Hydroid already! That dude must be amazingly talented and so skilled to be able to farm all the mats, craft all the keys, which take 6 hours each at this time, and get each part of his Warframe. And then on top of all that, craft it all together, which takes several days, but he managed to do all that time sync in the space of 30 minutes of the patch hitting the server. This guy is amazing at the game. I'm just honored to be in the same party as him. So a while passes and no stance mods drop. Prosecutors are extremely rare, and thus hunting Mr. Tenno Vahek is a bit difficult. Well, the credits I spent getting gear for the affinity boost have recharged. Might as well blow some of the stockpile in attempts at gambling. Only the first attempt results in no mod, while it certainly took my credits. I knew it was gambling, but I didn't expect the house to win that decisively. Okay, try a few more times more, and obviously I got nothing good from it. Psycho, why are you gambling for mods in the first place? Great question, Legion. See, this is in fact my 2nd to 5th attempts at transmuting things ever. I never use this feature, but because the stance mods dropped so unbelievably bad at launch, and to be frank, their odds really haven't gone up any other since those fist weapons that drop all the time. So I was forced to give this a try. But yeah, waste of time and money there. Now, I'm clearing out Ceres, and I got stuck in a door. This was far worse than the previous Update 13 video, as I couldn't do anything. I couldn't melee, jump, or even turn. I was stuck in place. And this isn't the only problem Ceres had in store. Oh no, I already mentioned the way to get Hydroid is very grindy. And any console players out there who didn't see these changes yet, in order to get Hydroid without using your wallet or trade skills, you have to be on Ceres, it has to be a Grineer controlled level, invasions don't count, and you have to be on a shipyard tile set. Usually you might run into a single Prosecutor, sometimes none, and very rarely two. If you want to farm these guys, hit up defense and survival type missions, they're pretty popular. Now back then, there was a bug where only a single Prosecutor could spawn no matter how long you stayed in defense, so that was fun, but okay, you get one to spawn. They are completely immune to damage unless your weapon of choice is modded to have their specific element attached to it, which are fire, ice, toxin, and electricity. Oh, well that's simple, you might say. I'll just combine fire and ice to make blast, and I can kill off half of them with one weapon. No, that's what I thought at first as well, but sadly, Legion, blast is blast, and even though it's 50% fire and 50% ice, it will do a whopping blue 0 to all Prosecutors. Diablo 2 had resistances like this later on in the expansion pack and ladder systems, and difficulty-wise, they changed from resistant to immune. The higher the difficulty, the faster they became immune, but it was still gradual. Here in Warframe, there is no difficulty slider. You can only choose which planet or tier of void to choose from, and that is that. There are no mods in place to reduce immunities, and why should they? There's only one planet, and one mob on that planet that would get a single use out of it. I find it quite odd that I can smack these guys for 30 fire damage on my single-digit ranked melee weapons, but when I should be doing over 2,000 with a rocket launcher, it does nothing. Not to mention that if these guys are here to protect the Hex location, why do they all carry beacons that can lead directly back to the guy? Wouldn't it make more sense to be like those red-cloaked dudes with the Emperor in Star Wars? Defend him merely by looking cool in the background background and, oh, I don't know, not giving away his location so a small group can kill him? To make Prosecutors worse, they are not only immune to all but one damage type at a time, but they give out auras as well. Suddenly, you have an entire fleet of Grineer also only capable of being damaged by that one element the Prosecutor is. 2 Prosecutors at once would clearly break the game, as stacking immunity buff would overlap and then nothing could kill them. This mechanic, this unnecessary mechanic, is the leading reason why these guys are so rare to begin with. The first one I ran into was a toxin, and no one in our group had a weapon that inflicted it. Luckily, one of us had a sentry that did toxin, so we just stood around waiting for it to die slowly as we got hit by this guy until he died off. How are you supposed to kill these things? Well, with that stupid immunity mechanic, which for the record isn't to increase difficulty, only annoyance, you would be best suited to equip each weapon with just one elemental mod each and make sure each weapon has a different mod. This not only requires you change your setup, it actually prevents you from customizing options that you can't mix elements to kill 2 types of Prosecutors. It is an all or nothing, so people that liked rolling viral or heck even radiation to kill Grineer quickly no longer can once they head out to Ceres. You will run into unkillable packs of mobs if you do so. So you got fire on melee, ice on primary, lightning on secondary, and toxin on your sentry. Yes, sentry. If you want to be totally covered, you need to do it that way and just wait for things to die on their own. Or as the devs said in their patch notes, quote, each Prosecutor is vulnerable to a primary elemental type, and you must use this to your advantage. How limiting your damage to only one elemental type and tying your hand behind your back can possibly be phrased as an advantage is just hilarious, but okay, do go on. What can you do for greater success? For greater success, team up with other Tenno and make use of multiple elemental types. Oh, so rely on someone randomly joining the mission, and I'm sure everyone ought to have that one element. That should do the trick. Hey, let's make these guys straight up immune to damage, because gamers love to see that outdated RPG thought process in their current gen third-person ninja shooter genre games, and instead of just making them take 25% of normal damage, screw balancing this, we're behind schedule and promised them this would be out tonight, so, someone in their group should have the element on them, right? I mean, if not, well, it's a multiplayer game, right? They should have just had their friends join the game with them. It's not our fault. It's not a solo game, not our fault. So you managed to actually kill one of these Prosecutors and they drop a beacon. Sweet! Let's check out the foundry and see how many beacons we need. Oh, it looks like 4 different types, okay. And each one requires double than the last one, so we need 26. So, okay, you killed 26 Prosecutors, and that ought to do good, right? Wrong! Very wrong. You might notice I have 73 Omega in 0 Delta. I just made a key before, so I actually had 85. Just because you killed them does not mean you can do anything with the actual beacon. They just had to put in yet another RNG paywall in front of their content. Technically, I have 92 beacons right now. That's more than enough for 3 keys, but because they wanted this to have a rarity exactly like the Cicero Crisis plants, even though that too was implemented badly, I cannot make any. Well, that's unfortunate. Your best bet is to group up with other people and spend keys sequentially and hope to get all 4 parts one at a time in succession. But anyone that has ever farmed parts knows you tend to get the same part over and over and not the one you need to complete the actual frame. Similar to how this key to unlocking Heck works with the rarity of beacons. Suspicious. Only this time, each Heck attempt requires all of these beacons to line up. Just do the mental math on how long you'd have to farm these beacons until you get the full Hydroid set. RNG is a cruel mistress, Legion. Oh, but Psycho, just bring Necro with. Oh, you mean the other farm-tastic grindfest of a Warframe. Okay, so if I'm the average free-to-player gamer out there, and I only have 2 slots available, why would I ever want to get these exceedingly hard-to-get Warframes? I'd never want to get rid of them once I did, which means I can never try out any new ones. And that right there is the main problem with this system. The developers are not developing a game, they're developing a need for the item shop. Yes, it supports the devs and that's great and all, but does a carrot on a stick item shop allow for a decent game underneath it? If you are so focused on getting people to spend money to play new content, you have to find time to actually make new content, and that sums up the problem with nearly every mobile and Facebook game on the market. PC and console games are better than this, and it's just in bad taste to keep perpetuating a pay-to-play mantra in a free-to-play game. This is free-to-play, not pay-to-play. Technically, there is 0 cost to load up the client, no. But at this rate, RNG keeps popping up, even though it was widely loathed hunting herbs in Cicero Crisis. they clearly aren't changing their development mindset. This is placing quite the precedent for the future. I will make no predictions, but I will say in the long run it gets increasingly hard to charge a customer that no longer exists. To round out this segment and to get on to the final part of the update, let's talk about stance mods. Did I mention you had a farm in this patch? Well, you've got a farm in this patch. Stance mods are surprisingly, almost suspiciously rare mods that can now drop off many enemies. But only certain enemies can drop certain mods, and different mods are more rare than others, and only certain mods can be applied to certain weapons. The best way to look at this is with a graph table. Doesn't that sound like a fun game to play, kids? Do you like graphs and tables? Well, here you go! It's just like EVE Online, only without the pair to actually charge you monthly. If you want to try out the new katana, have fun on Earth Cambria, you'll be there for the next hour to 4 weeks, depending on how lucky you get. Fist weapon lovers, I've got great news for you. They drop constantly, so you're probably the one safe weapon type of all melee this patch. To date, this is exactly my stance mod selection and what it looks like. I have 5 different stances. I've been slaughtering things. Actual hundreds of thousands of mobs have died collectively in the groups I've been in the past 2 weeks, and it all boils down to this. I was fortunate enough to snag a machete stance just seconds before the game ended, but the machete stance is crazy specific in itself. The only people that could ever use this stance are those who bought the original machete before it was pulled from the market and didn't sell it since then, those who were playing during the Gradavis Dilemma, where you not only had to play during that event, but play it enough to qualify for the rewards, and hopefully you sided with the Grenier. Yeah, the Corpus Stun baton thing works with the same mod, but it doesn't make any sense. These are all one-handed weapons anyway, but after noticing people were oddly not getting these stances, even though the devs knew darn well what the drop rates were, they said this on the forums. Moving forward, our team is currently examining the codex to ensure stance mod drops are being shown correctly and reading feedback. The issue of mod drop dilution is still a hot issue from which we are listening to. Would putting stance mods in the market alleviate some major concerns? Further investigating will be done. Sound familiar to how you can take advantage of debilitating elemental restraint to anyone else? How the heck does the problem of stance mods not dropping well enough possibly get twisted into would you like to buy them directly? How amazingly succinct and polite of them to let us eat cake. No, we don't want to pay for things that should be dropping at a reasonable rate in the first place. The problem is, you yourself bugged the code so they're not dropping as much as they should have, which you later patched, supposedly. You broke stances down per weapon type and even further per rarity, for reasons. You have mobs that aren't even in the game set to drop stances when they do suddenly appear. You gated almost all your content behind this RNG ball and knew this was going to happen in the first place. How about you increase the drop rate slightly so I stop getting vitality, redirection from my sentinel, and fracturing wind constantly? But yeah, sure, we want to pay real money for these, right? Would be simple-minded enough to actually. The real kicker of all is, after playing with and without and testing mods in between, unless you simply must look as flashy as long as possible on screen, stances do almost nothing. They unlock combos, some combos actually do stuff, but for the most part they grant a handful of bonus points to spend on upgrading mod loadouts, and that's about it. If you want to know which ones cause bleeds or knockdowns, don't bother checking the game. Why put helpful information there? All you need is a direct link from the market to the website to buy platinum. The rest is filler, right? Dark sectors are the final addition to the update, but you better synchronize your watches with your fellow Tenno, as you won't be able to actually use them very often. Once a rail is placed, it takes 24 hours for another alliance to build theirs to fight for the same spot. This is the only time you will ever see what a dark sector actually looks like, as once that rail is built, you will have to wait a full 48 hours for a conflict to end, and you can get back to business. So isn't that great implementation? Once every 3 days, you too can do a few missions on these brand new additions to the update. It's been 2 weeks, so I doubt we're going to see them step in and tweak the timing of these things anytime soon, but they certainly went back, and even though we are quite limited in the time that we can use these areas to their fullest, they did slash the amount of bonus experience they grant. So thanks for lowering that. If there was anything that needed changing, you certainly found the needle in the haystack of things that did not need fixing. So if you guys ever have the need to say to your teachers, you know, you just don't assign enough homework, or that your significant other is just too good looking, or your bills are just too darn low, feel free to tweet @PlayWarframe and let them know how to fix those things ASAP. And I just completed a solo rail conflict between Eclipse and the Angry Joe army, and if that's actually the Angry Joe army, welcome to the game, guys. Hope you have a good time. Where I should have received 20k on completion, as that is what it said when I clicked on it, only when I got out it gave me nothing, so apparently those are not so much as guaranteed rewards as promissory notes and IOUs. So hopefully these things get looked at sooner than never, but we'll see. I'll continue to aim high, but expect low. If you guys made it this far, I have to thank you for sitting through this whole thing. Heck, maybe you had it on in the background, or my voice is the perfect tone to fall asleep to. Either way, if you agree with me or otherwise, thank you for watching, Legion. We'd be honored if you spread this around message boards or even Warframe Wiki itself. I know we could, but it comes across as a bit presumptuous if we do it ourselves, I think anyway. If you guys like it enough to do that, then maybe we aren't too far off the mark. Either way, like and share this video with your fellow Tenno if you enjoyed it, and as always, if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. Catch you next time, Legion. Take care.